medication in a separate container for the individual so that you don't send the home bottle back and forth with the person. The problem being there is that it may not come home at night and you may not get it. So separate containers for work or school are desirable. Communicate clearly with the work and school. They'll also need to have a copy of the signed order so that they know what the individual is getting and so that they know why they're getting it. Some people find that a logbook works well. Some people just do it verbally. You'll need to figure out what works best in your setting. A log is really handy because you may be working or interacting with a variety of people both at the work and the school setting. And this way they have a written record and they don't have to keep verbally relaying it to one another all the time. We're going to look at how you're going to document when a medication is given at school or work. And it's not significantly different than when they went home to mom's. In our example, you'll see that, and again, reference the handout you have. These on the screen are pretty small for you to see. Looking at my example, it appears at the 12 p.m. dose, the prednisone on the 6th and the 7th. There's an S in that blank instead of the foster providers John and Kathleen Robbins. And when I look at the signature line down below, S stands for school. So that shows that the medication was the school's responsibility and that Hannah should have gotten her medication at school. If for some reason the medication is not given at school or there's a problem, school needs to communicate that back to the foster provider also. Some individuals self-medicate, and they've been pre-approved to do this by their ISP teams. The ISP documentation should include documentation that the team approves this method, and they need to assure that there is a consistent training program for the individual. It should be consistent with homework and school. That includes provisions for retraining when med doses and times change, or there may be the consensus by the team that training was unnecessary, and that's okay too, but that does need to be clearly documented in the ISP. The individual's ability to continue to self-medicate should be reviewed at least annually. Individuals who self-medicate must keep their medications locked in an area that's inaccessible to others. It's really a good practice to monitor the self-administration periodically. You can do that if the individual likes to keep a MAR record and sign out or check off when they've given themselves the med. That's one way. Or you can simply count pills. Know the date they started that bottle and midway through the week count, if they're just starting doing it independently, or maybe midway through the month if they've been doing it a while, just count and see, do they have the right number of pills? Have they been giving themselves a dose every morning? Or have they skipped one occasionally? If they're skipping it frequently, this can be a real problem and time to look again. Do they need more training or have they lost interest in self-medication? And you'd want to document any specific retraining that was needed for the individual in the ISP. Storage of medications, according to the current rule for children's foster home, states that meds shall be kept in a locked location or stored in a manner that prevents access to children. The adult foster rule is slightly different in that it says they shall be kept in a locked central location separate from that of the provider or provider's families. This is January of '03 as we're taping this, so if you're looking at this sometime in the future, you may want to be checking your rules to see if anything has changed or if this is still the current practice. Persons who self-administer may keep and carry their own meds with them if authorized by the ISP team. It's also possible that they could be self-administering, but they may be kept locked up at school because that's a safer practice. They need to always be in a safe place. If they carry them, they need to be on their person, in a backpack, in a fanny pack, not in their lunch pail stored with a bunch of other individuals' lunch pails so that someone else could access them. And in general storage of medication, it's best practice to keep oral meds separated from external medications. Medications that are unused, discontinued, outdated, recalled by the manufacturer, or if they're in a container that is no longer legible, these medications should be disposed of. And they need to be disposed of in a way that prevents anyone that they're not prescribed for from gaining access to them. The reason we have the picture of the toilet here is often flushing is the best method. You can also run them down the garbage disposal. However, it is not acceptable to put them in the garbage can. And this is true for creams and ointments, medicated creams and ointments too. Squeeze them out of the tube, flush them down the toilet, run them down the disposal. Don't toss them in the trash where someone may get their hands on them. It's best practice to keep a record of this, even though it is not required in the foster setting. However, if you have a lot of individuals working for you in the home, I would certainly suggest that you do this. The following example simply shows some of the items that need to be tracked when you're keeping a drug disposal record. And if you choose to go ahead and do this, you can use this as an example. In the example on screen, somehow the lines are a little far apart. That's unintentional. I'm not sure why that happened. The last page here is simply a page of commonly used abbreviations. And I'm not going to go over them, but I do wish to have you look at those whenever you have a question. I want to thank you very much for your attention. I also want to point out that in your packet there is a worksheet. I don't have it with me right now, but I think it's about 6 pages long. It gives examples and asks you to go ahead and sign the MAR, fill it in as if you'd given the med, show that you discontinued the med, or in another example that you started a new medication, and it will give you a little practice right now. There should be a key with correct answers, also either by the individual who's administering this training or available to you so that you can check your responses. If you have any problems, if you're answering something significantly different than the example or don't understand why, don't hesitate to ask someone. This is a learning process. We've all taken medications for ourselves and given them to family members, but we've never been required to document in this way before. So don't hesitate to ask so that you can document correctly and so that the records can reflect the excellent work that you're doing with the individual. Thanks for your attention.